Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to offer my amendment to prohibit funding for the, ready, bicycle subsidy benefit program at the Department of the Interior. The DOI Bicycle Subsidy Benefit Program provides taxpayer dollars to DOI employees and paid student interns and/or unpaid student volunteers for the purchase, improvements, repair, storage, and/or maintenance of a non-motorized bicycle that is used as a primary means of commuting to and from work, as well as a monthly stipend. Welcome to the federal government. American taxpayers' hard-earned money is being wasted on covering bicycle commuting expenses such as bicycles, bicycle locks, bicycle parking, storage, bicycle safety equipment, bicycle improvements, or accessories including reflective lights, racks, bicycle repairs, and general maintenance, personal safety and protective equipment, including high visible safety apparel, headwear, and bicycle gloves, and bicycle share memberships, as well as getting paid to bike to work. Praise the Lord. Coloradans across my district are struggling right now. They're hurting. The economy is bad, inflation is high, the policies are ruining their lives that are brought by the Biden-Harris administration. They are struggling right now as they deal with the disastrous effects of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's destructive economic policies. We must redirect our attention and their money to much more important things than subsidizing employees for riding bicycles. The Biden administration has unleashed record inflation on Americans that has decimated our bank and retirement accounts, increased gas prices to record levels, raised utility bills, drove up grocery costs, and made it harder to live for the American people. The primary root cause of this record-breaking inflation was trillions of dollars of wasteful federal spending. This excessive spending has real-life consequences that the people I represent are experiencing every single day. American families will pay a $8,581 inflation tax over the next year. They didn't vote for that, but unfortunately, too many elected officials did. Currently, 20 million Americans cannot pay their electric bill. We have seen a 4.3% decline in real wages since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris entered the White House. Americans have lost more than $2 trillion in retirement savings they have worked their lives for. America is $35 trillion in debt, and Democrats want us to continue to print money and pay bureaucrats to bike to work when our commander-in-chief himself cannot even ride a bike. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment to cut wasteful, silly federal spending by prohibiting funding for the Bicycle Subsidy Benefit Program at the Department of the Interior. Mr. Chair, I sure do hope we can get this one through. I reserve.
Yeah, members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the president. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I claim time in opposition.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
The amendment would block the Department of Interior from its bicycle subsidy benefit program, which encourages federal employees to use bicycles to commute to the office. And we all know what the traffic's going to be like here tomorrow. Bikes would be handy. The department created this program in response to a 1993, this is not a new President Biden, Vice President Harris program, 1993. It's been around since 1993. And Congress authorized it. And Congress allowed each agency head to establish a program to encourage employees to use the means other than single occupancy motor vehicles to commute to and from work. So that could include taking the subway, taking the bus, or riding your bike. This is a government-wide program, and blocking the amendment unfairly targets the Interior Department employees. So I urge my colleagues to treat all employees with fairness. And let's reject this amendment. And let's also make sure that when we're talking about it, we have our facts accurate. 1993, Congress made a law which authorized each agency to establish this program. And with that, I yield back.
Reserves. The yield's back.
Now
Gentlewoman from Colorado.
Mr. Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin. Senator Cornyn.
Chief Justice Hecht, I remember when you were a district judge in Dallas, I was a district judge in San Antonio. Chief Justice Berger gave a famous talk talking about access to justice more broadly and noted appropriately that the cost associated with getting disputes resolved in court and the time it took to get those disputes resolved were an impediment to access to justice. And so what grew out of that, as I recall, was the alternative dispute resolution movement as a way to expedite access to justice that through non-traditional means. Do you believe that that continues to play an important role in terms of access to justice more broadly?
Yes, I do, Senator. And we're experimenting with all kinds of ways of using that over the years. Some has been online. I mentioned AI as a possibility for bringing people together, hearing both sides and trying to get a resolution quickly, maybe online. But we've had mediation since you and I were, we didn't even know about it when you and I were district judges. But now we have mediation and all sorts of ways, because the adversarial system, which is good, it's a good way to get to the truth when people can oppose each other and you can listen to them and try to decide. But it's not good when the people are not equally matched, when they don't have equal access to the evidence, and so it continues to be developed.
And is the model that Ms. Nelson talked about in Alaska, is that something that you're exploring, or is maybe you've already gone farther than just exploring it in our state?
Yeah, we call them paraprofessionals, and the Texas Supreme Court just approved them after studying them for several months to make sure there weren't going to be any mistakes that unintended consequences. But we have approved it, and we've been the benefit of Alaska's and other states' use of those systems, and we think it'll be great in Texas.
And are these paraprofessionals authorized to appear in court?
They are, and there's a rule that says you can do this, you can't do this. There's a kind of a training process that is important, but it's not rigorous. And these are people who already know something of the legal practice and profession. But as she mentioned, unauthorized practice of law rules in the states do not let non-lawyers practice law. And so this is a way that they can do things which might be considered practicing law, but really are just providing help to legal aid providers and others.
Well, I was happy to lead a letter to the Appropriations Committee to seek funding for access to justice, something that we all support. 48 senators on a bipartisan basis have written, Senator Murphy and I, with leading that. And it's a rare occasion these days when you see 48 senators on a bipartisan basis agreeing to anything. So that part represents some success. But I wonder if you just take a moment, Chief Justice Hecht. I recall that there was a day when funding for the Legal Services Corporation was in jeopardy because of some of the, what I would call politicalization of its caseload. And would you refresh my memory and maybe share with others, how did we deal with that in Texas to ensure that support for legal services remained bipartisan and was not overcome or overtaken by politics and thus jeopardizing the program?
I think just by explaining it, I've spent countless hours walking the halls of Congress, the House of Representatives, over the years with the American Bar Association representatives, talking to Texas legislators. But I remember I was sitting in one Congresswoman's office some years ago, and really after 10 or 15 minutes, she said, I just was not aware that I'd heard about it, but I was not aware that this was happening. In Texas, when the IOLTA program folded because interest rates crashed in 2008, 2000.
IOLTA is interest on lawyer trust accounts.
Right, and it's been a major funder of legal services since the early 80s, 1981. I think it's the first date. But I was sitting in a Senate committee room, Senate Finance Committee room in the Texas legislature when the chair, an oil man from East Texas, said, what are you going to do about the loss of IOLTA funding? And Chief Justice Jefferson and I said, we don't know. And he said, suppose we give you half of it. And first time I'd ever had a legislator offer me money. When I got up off the floor, I said, sure, we'd take that. But that was the beginning of funding. I mentioned putting a face on things when in about 6 sessions ago, I asked the legislature for access to justice, legal aid funding for veterans. They were falling all over themselves to try to help us out because it's just such an obviously worthy thing to do. So I think the more we do that to show that this is about good government, access to justice, denial of access to justice hurts taxpayers because they have to pick up the pieces of people's lives that are hurt. Business communities are for it because it helps employees and customers. And I think the more you do that, it just gets a good, strong bipartisan name.